Weddings, the gown, the photos, the bills.
How much did this portrait cost you?
It cost me about $2,000.
Saying I do means get ready to spend.
When we get a bride to say yes to the gown, we really have just started the sale.
You're emotional, and the people who are providing those services play to those emotions.
It's junk, basically.
Buying used car parts can save you money, but be careful where you buy.
Totally wrong engine. It's like putting a GM engine in a Ford car. It doesn't work.
The biggest problem is it burns approximately 4 quarts of oil a week.
Hello, I'm Jackie Perrin.
Hi, I'm Jim Nunn. Later on Market Watch, a swimming pool tragedy leads to a recall. And imagine paying just $300 a year for your utilities. You could in this house. First, though, here comes the bill.
Mid-February is probably a little too early to think about the month of June, unless, of course, you have a wedding coming up, in which case you may already be approaching panic mode. And when that happens, you could be ripe for the picking. So, in the interests of helping you keep your expenses in line, MarketPlace gladly offers this encore presentation of a story we call Wedding Bills.
We leave the house with our heads, but we leave them in the car and walk into the store with our hearts.
Christiane Petch and Carrie Moretti were a week away from their big day when they talked to us last summer. They thought they were cost-conscious planners, but they already knew they had underestimated the cost of almost everything.
I was out maybe 20% here, 15% there, low, every single time. And so I made a revised budget and then another revised budget. And today I worked on another revised budget. And I'm worried that maybe this time next year I'll still be working on my budget for my wedding, so.
How did that happen? They admit the budget overruns may be partly their fault.
You are willing to pay a little bit more for those services than you would have been if you were a little bit more rationally thinking. You know, because you're emotional, and the people who are providing those services play to those emotions. Like a person, a lot of them do though, because they'll say, well, you could do this, but this would add just that certain something.
This would be so nice.
They know the right buttons to push.
You're selling the feeling.
Bob Berry is a retail consultant from California. He specializes in wedding formal wear. He teaches salespeople in the U.S. and Canada how to push the buttons.
We try to have the salesperson first build a very strong rapport with the bride and groom, and especially zero in on the bride, because the bride really calls the shots.
You just want to marry the person you love and you want to spend your rest of your life with, and just feel you've been taken advantage of by everybody in the business.
Martine Valsen and Martin Barabé were married last spring in Montreal. Martine is studying business administration, and Martin is an accountant, so they know how to shop around.
So even if you try to get the best price, if you go anywhere else, well, you mentioned it's a wedding too. They're prepared, they're waiting for you.
Well, when we get a bride to say yes to the gown, we really have just started the sale.
Barry says the trick is to sell the accessories, because that's where the really big profit margins are.
We should get a veil and a headpiece on her quickly so she can look in the mirror and get that look. We should encourage her to put on shoes to see how the gown looks, but we're also starting the sale on the shoes.
So I guess at one point it just adds up, and I was like, this is too much. You know, I paid like $75 for stupid crinoline, and I have to run to the store, have my mother running to the store on Monday to get it back, or I'm going to have this penalty.
Unwarranted penalty payments, inflated profit margins, appeals to emotion, the hard sell. Those are all tricks of the wedding trade, some of the hidden costs of getting married. But some say that's just scratching the surface. Wedding business is big business, and when you dig deeper, it can get dirtier.
A lot of people in the bridal industry would say that they're just a few bad apples, but we found actually quite a lot more than just a few.
People are shocked at what a real business this is. It's an industry, a business where people, and it's also more cutthroat than I think people are.
Alan and Denise Fields were married in Loveland, Colorado in 1989. Now they live near Boulder and work from their home office in the foothills. They were so appalled by what they experienced, they wrote their own book on the wedding industry.
We went undercover, we took our wedding rings off and went undercover and went out to bridal shops and interviewed photographers and florists. We tasted wedding cake.
The Fields have become expert consumer advisors on the wedding business.
And there was not a lot of help out there on how to save money and also how to avoid being ripped off. The #1 complaint area we get from brides and grooms is shopping for the bridal dress.
The Fields found lots of shady practices to justify the complaints, and some that crossed the line into illegal.
More than half of the bridal stores in North America rip the tags out of bridal dresses.
Consumer protection laws in the U.S. and Canada require that all clothing sold off the rack has to carry a tag with the name of the manufacturer.
They rip the designer's name or the manufacturer's name out of the dress.
Why?
Why would they do that? Well, that's to prevent you from comparison shopping.
Like, I had a very simple dress, and it wasn't that expensive, but the fact that then you have to pay for alterations was a kind of a surprise.
What a lot of bridal shops have been caught doing is they will look at a bride and say, well, what's your street clothes size? And maybe you say, oh, well, I'm a size 8. Well, you know, these dresses run small, so we're going to have to order you a size 10 or a size 12. Well, the dress comes in and, surprise, it's too big, and it has to be altered. And you could
they'll do it for you.
They'll do it for you at a price. You know, it could cost as much as $200 to alter a dress down. So you're spending $1,000 for what should have been an $800 dress.
Instant traditions. We've heard about some retailers who actually make up traditions in order to sell you a few more things.
One of our favorite accessories that we found, this was a lucky sixpence, which comes in this little package. This sixpence is for sale for $12 US. And you're supposed to buy the sixpence and put it in your shoe, and it's going to bring you good luck.
Hi.
I think the only folks that's getting the good luck is the folks that are making the sixpence. They're only doing it for $12.
US. It's a lucky sixpence. It's for a wedding.
They prey upon your ignorance as a bride. You don't know if these are traditions or not. You don't know if they're making it up.
It's a very nice coin. Now, if you would come in here and wanted to buy one, I'd gladly sell it to you for 10 cents.
10 cents?
10 cents?
I paid $12 American for that.
You've been took.
I've been took.
You've been took royally.
The reception. What did you find out about that?
Hey, what's up?
Probably one of our favorite rip-offs is when you check out the menu at a very posh hotel and you see that they're going to charge you $40 or $50 for fruit punch.
Well, here is a gallon of fruit punch from the grocery store for $3.30.
Getting into the wedding is like getting on a luge track, you know, right down the pipe. You can't get out. And
Rob McKinnon and Rosemary Walton were determined to have a modest reception at a hall in downtown Toronto. That's not how it turned out.
You just end up like you're writing checks every 2 hours. And
one check was for the bill from an upscale caterer recommended by the hall. It came to more than $1,100 for coffee and dessert, and what was supposed to be a lavish antipasto for their 45 guests.
And I looked over at the table and I thought, oh my God, that's all the food?
Mm-hmm.
There were what I saw was 4 platters of marinated vegetables.
The second surprise was an unexplained surcharge tacked onto the bill. McKinnon asked what that was for. The caterer told McKinnon that was for a fee he had paid to the hall to be listed as a recommended supplier.
And I said, well, what do you mean? And he said, well, they charge us 15%, so we charge you 15%. Now, I wouldn't do business that way.
We also found some cases of hotel catering managers taking kickbacks from disc jockeys and harpists and entertainers in order to recommend them to brides and grooms.
Flowers. What did your research turn up?
Well, we discovered something we call the Mercedes syndrome. We found that some florists were changing the price of wedding flowers depending on what type of car that the bride drives up in. We actually had a florist admit to us this practice.
They know some way of, they should be called magicians, not photographers. They know how to rope you.
Joe Giannini manages an auto body shop in Concord, Ontario. He knows about estimates and the distant relationship they sometimes have to the final bill. Even so, he feels the final cost of his photographs was way out of line. His bill more than doubled, from $4,000 to just over $10,000.
They know you're in a spot, you're willing to pay for it, you just got married. They kind of coax you into bigger and better things. And
What specifically did you end up paying extra for?
the extra things that you would think that were assumed or were in a photo package, like our portraits, say, for example. We paid for the package 30 by 40 portrait for ourselves. When it came time to showing us the portrait, all of a sudden, well, you got to mount it, which was like $220. You have to pick a certain finish, which was like $180. We thought that was, part of the actual portrait. You have to give it to us mounted. You have to give it to us in a finish. No, it wasn't.
How much did this portrait cost you?
It cost me about $2,000. $2,100, yeah. By the time you put a $300-400 frame in there, you'd think these things were assumed, but they're, in a package. They're not.
Tell me about bridal gown preservation.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
We call this the dirty little secret of the bridal industry. This is perhaps the sort of final ripoff, unfortunately, that some couples fall into. What we found is that we found several gown preservation companies that were, number one, charging extremely high fees, as much as $200 or $300, and number two, they weren't even cleaning the dresses.
When I originally called the cleaning service, they said it would come in a sealed container and not to break the seal because it will ruin the preservation.
Heather Smith lives in Minnesota. She had her dress cleaned and preserved by a company in New York.
Well, here's the catch-22. The box comes back to you, and it says on that you void the warranty if you open the box.
That's part of the scam. If they can't see the dress, touch the dress, then they're not going to know it's dirty.
Heather twigged to the scam when she saw another woman with the same sealed box tell her story on a television talk show. That woman had opened her box and found her dress more soiled than before she sent it out. And that got Heather thinking.
So I thought, if I don't break the seal, I'll never know until maybe it's too late. So I got a video camera, and I told my mom what I wanted to do.
It's cleaned. It's not cleaned.
I was in shock. I was very upset. I was so mad. I was just mad. I was hurt too.
Beautiful.
Nobody likes to be taken to the cleaners. So what can you do to keep wedding costs down? Here's the field's most important piece of advice.
The way you shop for a car or the way you shop for any other big ticket item like a computer is the way you should shop for a wedding. This is, yes, it is a big emotional event for you, but you have to look at everything in terms of, is it a good value? Is it the right thing for me? Do I really need it?
But even the best laid plans can go awry. Remember Christiane and Carrie? They were the ones who carefully drew up budget after budget after budget. So how much did they end up spending?
The price tag for the whole thing? Do I have to answer?
Opening Market Watch tonight, safety in swimming pools. 3 seasons ago, we told you about serious problems with many types of pool fittings. The long hair of adults and children was getting caught in drains and filters. Hair was sucked into the filters, making it impossible to get loose. This caused a number of deaths. Kristen Fitzpatrick got her hair caught in the filter system of a Scarborough pool. By the time lifeguards realized what was happening, Kristen had already drowned. Her hair became caught in a filter like this one. It was made by Stay Right Industries. It's taken 3 years, but the filter has now been redesigned. This new filter won't allow hair to get caught. The holes are much smaller, and there's nothing for hair to wrap around. The recalled filter is the Stay Right Floor Inlet Fitting, model number 08417. If your home or community pool has one, contact the company at 1-888-446-8285. They'll give you a new model free of charge. And there's more. There's also a recall on main drain covers in swimming pools, spas, and hot tubs. At least 2 people drowned when their hair was caught in one of these covers. Hydro Air Industries is recalling model 106200 and replacing it with this redesigned model. If this cover is in your spa or pool, call the company at 1-800-230-9560. You'll get a new one. But a warning to parents and children. Always keep long hair away from all filters in pools, whirlpools, and hot tubs. The simplest solution is just to wear a bathing cap.
Hydro bills, heating bills, water bills. Imagine if they all just disappeared. They could if you lived here, in one of these modern semi-detached homes in downtown Toronto. They were built as part of a competition held by the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation. The challenge was to make innovative, environmentally friendly homes that were also easy on the pocketbook. The winning team includes builder Rolf Polahimo.
The house is built with non-toxic materials, that it's environmentally friendly in the way it's built, and in addition, there is no connection to city services. No city water, no city sewers, no gas, and no hydro.
But these homes have heat and light and water. Deborah Wright is a researcher with CMHC.
All the water in the house comes from rainwater. So it's collected off the roof and off the back garden.
That rainwater goes into an underground holding tank. Then it's thoroughly filtered before it ends up here in the kitchen sink for drinking and cooking. Once that water goes down the drain, it stays in the house. Then it's filtered twice for its use again later. The first filtering happens with this newly patented Canadian invention. This may look like just a stack of sponges, but it's actually a high-tech water purifier. The water is then pushed up through a filter of rocks and sand and carbon, like this one. And finally, it's piped back into the house to places where drinking water isn't necessary. And as for electricity, that comes from sunshine, ingenuity,
and the photovoltaic panels. Photo means light, and voltaics is voltage, and this provides all the electrical needs for the house. And below us, on the next level down, we have the solar collector panels.
The solar panels provide heat, but they're not alone. In the concrete floors, an invisible system of plastic tubing full of warm water gives off a steady heat. CMHC estimates that the cost of all services in this home will be less than $300 a year.
Cooler air, which is outside hovering around.
They're holding free tours in one of the homes. The other is up for sale, but the latest in technology doesn't come cheaply. The asking price for the 3-bedroom home is more than $300,000.
Hey, Mom. Can I borrow the car for a while?
Well, where are you going?
It's an old and wearisome ritual, handing over the car keys to teenagers who don't always keep their promise to drive safely. But now there's a way to check on a lead-footed juvenile. This electronic monitor is attached to your car's drive shaft by a mechanic. It's wired to your car's electrical system. It keeps track of how fast a car goes, how far it's driven, and even when it was driven. The driving record can be read off its digital readout. Or the monitor can be attached to a computer and the information displayed on the screen even days later.
I told you I'd be checking.
Now a parent can always check. The Drive Right is available for about $280. We all like to save a bit of cash, especially when it comes to something as pricey as car repairs. So it's no wonder companies that sell used car parts are doing a booming business. But before you buy, you'd be wise to check up on whom you're buying from. Ross Rutherford of CBC Manitoba has the sad tale of some Winnipeg car owners who didn't do their homework.
Car repairs. What could be more aggravating to a motorist? Never mind the nuisance. And what about the expense? With service centers charging up to $72 an hour for labor alone, many people figure it's cheaper to simply do the repairs themselves. So they go shopping for parts. Here's an alternator, a key part of a car's electrical system. You can buy a brand new one at a car dealership where you could pay as much as $342 for this particular model. But this one happens to be used. You can get it from an auto wrecker for $65.
Down here we've got wheels, hubs, fuel pumps, power brake boosters, engines, transaxles, and transfer cases.
For auto wreckers, broken cars are big business. This is Willis Tice, and he runs one of the biggest auto wrecking companies in Winnipeg.
We dismantle about 600 vehicles a year, and we do about $250,000 in sales a month.
Recycling has captured public attention, so many auto wreckers have changed their sales approach. They're no longer glorified junkyards where you just tear off your own parts.
It used to be the case where the owner had the till in his back pocket, his bite was as mean as a dog's bark, and that type of a thing, but it's slowly changing. Computerized inventory, computerized billing, parts are tested, guarantees. These are all common things amongst the majority of the yards.
About 1,500 auto wreckers carry on business across Canada, most of them tucked away behind fences on the outskirts of cities. But although this business may be changing, you still have to be careful how you shop and where.
Well, I got ripped off.
Jim Dubois bought a used engine in 1995 for his car, a 1980 Buick. He's not very happy.
The biggest problem is it burns approximately 4 quarts of oil a week. It's junk, basically. I don't know if you can hear it in the mic, but the lifters are all shot on it. They rattle and clack, which is not a good sign. And the motor just shakes when you start going down the street, giving it pressure. It shakes more than this, or you can feel it in the whole car. The whole car shakes.
Dubois bought his engine here at H&R Auto Wrecking in Winnipeg.
I picked them out of the Yellow Pages. They had a big ad in the Yellow Pages that, and the ad had it showed that all their engines and transmissions were reconditioned, and they said, "Yep, we've got one for your car."
Dubois paid $300 for the engine and $250 for the installation.
It wasn't shortly after I got the car, a day or 2 days after, one of my friends noticed it was blowing blue smoke out the back of it, and so I went down to see them, and they said they'd replace it, and we'll have an engine ready for you in a couple days, you know, and that's how it started. Oil on September 15th, oil on October 15th, oil
What
on
started
October 21st,
was can after can of
oil on
oil,
October.
and then repeated trips and phone calls to H&R, all with no success.
They didn't fix it, they didn't replace it, nor would they refund my money.
Dubois finally sued H&R Auto Wrecking for $642, and he won, but it wasn't much of a victory.
H&R has never paid me, and I don't know how to collect the money.
Court records show that H&R Auto Wrecking has been no stranger to complaints in recent years. We checked several of these claims and found other consumers just as upset as Dubois. Other names don't show up here at all, like Doug Bourbonnier. He figured that fighting H&R in court would simply be a waste of time and money. He had paid H&R $300 last year for an engine for his 1980 Ford. But the engine sold to him by H&R, well, the problem was pretty basic.
Totally wrong engine. Okay. It's like putting a GM engine in a Ford car. Doesn't work. I was told that when I brought that engine back that yes, this is the wrong engine, sorry, 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 I'll give you a call when I get another one, and I never heard another word. They had my money up front, I have nothing.
Bourbonnier had his car repaired elsewhere. He says he wants his money back, but his receipt says clearly that H&R gives no refunds at all. The company gave him a $300 credit note to buy other goods from H&R.
It's basically a piece of paper that entitles me to buy air fresheners or t-shirts in their store, but it does me no good in the long run. They didn't produce what I went there to buy. I had verbal agreements, I had written agreements that this was supposed to be the engine for my car, and they didn't come through on their end of the deal.
We asked H&R to respond to these consumer complaints, but they refused an interview. Just down the street, we asked Willis Tice for some advice on how a consumer can check out an auto wrecker beforehand. Tice is a spokesman and past president for the Automotive Recyclers of Manitoba, which represents about 20 of the larger businesses.
It is a mediator between vendor and purchaser, should there be a problem.
Tice says that H&R Auto Wrecking is not a member of the association. Every province except Saskatchewan has an organization representing auto wreckers, and most of these groups say they will mediate for consumers who run into problems. There's also a national association called the Auto Recyclers of Canada, and members of this group offer warranties on the parts they sell. Consumers looking for used parts should check to see whether the company they're dealing with is a member of one of the provincial or national associations. As for Jim Dubois, he says he simply failed to do any checking ahead of time. If he had phoned the Better Business Bureau, he would have learned that H&R Wrecking has an unsatisfactory record. Instead, he has a lot of frustration, a lot of oil bills, and an engine that's not dependable.
The car's running on about, well, I don't know exactly. I'd say maybe 4 cylinders good and 2 cylinders bad and 2 cylinders not at all. But if I can get through the winter, I think I'll wait until spring and then I'll decide what to do with it. Maybe you'd like to buy it.
Next week on MarketPlace, some advice about hot tubs. Looks inviting, but before you take the plunge, what you can't see might hurt you.
Okay, what I've got here is a plate of Legionella pneumophila.
It is dangerous. I have an aunt and uncle that died from it, and you should very seriously consider what you're doing.
That's next week on MarketPlace.
If you'd like to suggest a story idea for our program, here's how to do it. You can reach us by mail at Box 500, Station A, Toronto, M5W1E6. Our fax number is 416-205-3131. And you can contact us on the internet at www.tv.cbc.ca/market.
And that's our show for this week. Stay with CBC Television now for The Fifth Estate. I'm Jackie Perrin.
And I'm Jim Nunn. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.